She's tiny, angry, and in charge, and the Galactic Empire says I have to obey. Marcus Drake stared at the transfer orders on his datapad, wondering which superior officer he'd pissed off this time. After 15 years as a Terran Alliance special operative, followed by 5 as a hegemony mercenary, he was being demoted to babysitter. Commander Talia Delnar requires a personal security attachment, the briefing read. Your combat experience makes you uniquely qualified. Translation, you're expendable. Everyone in the hegemony knew of Commander Delnar. The Vesperians were a species that barely reached 3 feet in height, with silvery skin and oversized eyes that gave them an almost childlike appearance. But there was nothing childlike about their military prowess. What they lacked in physical stature, they made up for with analytical minds that could process battlefield variables faster than most AI systems. And Commander Delnar was reportedly the best of them all. "This is garbage," Marcus grumbled, tossing the datapad onto his bunk. His roommate Jorax, a hulking Taurian with scaly blue skin, rumbled with laughter. "The little terror, better you than me, Drake." Jorax's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Heard she executed her last bodyguard for stepping on her shadow." "That's ridiculous." "Is it 6 bodyguards in 2 standard years? None retired." Marcus ran a hand through his close-cropped hair. "Great." 2 hours later, he stood at attention outside the command deck of the HCS Invictus, the hegemony's newest battle cruiser. The doors hissed open, and several officers rushed out, looking harried. Marcus straightened his posture and stepped inside. The command deck was a marvel of hegemony technology, holographic displays, neural interfaces, and at its center, a tactical projection table currently displaying a star system Marcus didn't recognize. Around it stood various officers and a single, diminutive figure standing on an elevated platform. "Unacceptable," the small figure snapped, her voice surprisingly deep and resonant for her size. "The supply chain vulnerabilities remain unaddressed. Recalculate with the parameters I specified." A human officer twice her height seemed to shrink under her gaze. "Yes, Commander, right away." Commander Delnar turned, and Marcus got his first clear look at her. She barely reached his waist, with silvery skin that caught the light of the tactical displays. Her oversized eyes were violet with horizontal pupils, currently narrowed in irritation. She wore the standard hegemony officer's uniform, modified for her proportions, with insignia indicating her rank as fleet commander, answerable only to the Hegemony Council itself. Drake Marcus, former Terran Special Forces Black Operations Division, 5 years in hegemony service, she stated, not a question but a recitation of facts. Your file indicates 17 confirmed kills in close-quarters combat. Impressive. Before Marcus could respond, alarms blared. The tactical display flickered, then stabilized. Security breach Deck 14, announced the ship's AI. Delnar's eyes narrowed further. Interesting timing. 3 armed figures burst onto the command deck, weapons raised. Marcus reacted instinctively, drawing his sidearm, but Delnar moved faster, impossibly fast for her size. She vaulted from her platform, something metallic glinting in her hand. The first assailant fell, a thin blade protruding from his throat. The second got off a shot that Delnar somehow anticipated, rolling beneath it. She was suddenly behind him, a second blade finding the gap in his armor at the base of his spine. Marcus dropped the third attacker with a clean headshot, then stared in disbelief at the commander. 2 kills in under 5 seconds, the bodies of her victims still twitching. Delnar calmly retrieved her blades, wiping them on the uniform of one of the fallen assassins. "Adequate reaction time, Drake," she said, those unsettling violet eyes assessing him. "Perhaps you'll last longer than your predecessors." She stepped back onto her platform, her small stature once again apparent, the brief display of lethal grace already a memory. "Report to my quarters at 600. We have much to discuss about your new duties." She turned back to the tactical display. "Now about those supply chain vulnerabilities." Marcus holstered his weapon, a chill running down his spine. Maybe the stories weren't exaggerations after all, UB. Marcus had been Commander Delnar's shadow for 3 weeks, and he still couldn't decide if she was a tactical genius or simply insane. The Vesperian commander kept a punishing schedule, sleeping barely 4 hours per night. She spent most of her time poring over intelligence reports, fleet movements, and supply chain analyses. Today, however, was different. The HCS Invictus had been ordered to the Cygnus Reach, a contested sector where hegemony control was being challenged by the coalition of free worlds. "You seem tense, Drake," Delnar remarked as they entered the command deck. The bridge crew snapped to attention. "Just anticipating the battle, Commander," Marcus replied, taking his position 2 paces behind her elevated platform. Delnar's violet eyes studied the tactical display. "Battle is nothing to fear when you understand its mathematics." The sensor officer's voice cut through the tension. "Coalition fleet detected, 16 warships approaching from the Traxus Nebula." Marcus stiffened. The Invictus led a squadron of only 5 vessels. They were outnumbered more than 3 to 1. "Sensor profile indicates 3 heavy cruisers, 7 destroyers, and 6 frigates," continued the officer, his voice wavering. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what those odds meant. Everyone except Delnar. "Perfect," she said, a smile spreading across her diminutive face. "Begin Operation Crossfire." Marcus watched in bewilderment as Delnar issued a series of orders that seemed to make no strategic sense. She ordered their smallest frigate to break formation and approach the nebula, apparently sacrificing it. She positioned their cruisers in a scattered pattern that violated standard hegemony doctrine. "Commander," the tactical officer began hesitantly, "these formations leave our flanks exposed." "I'm aware, Lieutenant," Delnar replied without looking up from her display. "Proceed." The coalition forces responded predictably, moving to encircle the seemingly disorganized hegemony squadron. Their heavy cruisers pushed forward, eager to engage. "They've committed," Delnar announced. "Activate gravitational mines." The nebula suddenly erupted with explosions as hidden mines detonated, disrupting the coalition formation. Simultaneously, the Invictus and her sister ships executed a perfectly synchronized maneuver, catching the enemy cruisers in a deadly crossfire. "Now," Delnar commanded, "deploy the Phantom drones." Small, stealthy craft launched from the hegemony vessels, speeding toward the disoriented coalition ships. On the tactical display, Marcus watched as the drones bypassed shields and attached to critical systems. Simultaneous detonation in 3, 2, 1. Multiple coalition vessels went dark as the drones detonated against their power cores. The remaining enemy ships, now in disarray, were easy prey for the hegemony squadron. In 20 minutes, the battle was over. 14 coalition ships destroyed or disabled, 2 retreating in panic. The hegemony squadron had sustained only minor damage. "How?" Marcus couldn't stop himself from asking as the bridge crew celebrated around them. Delnar stepped down from her platform, barely reaching Marcus's waist as she stood beside him. "I reviewed 347 previous coalition engagements," she explained matter-of-factly. "Their admirals are predictable. They always position their heavy cruisers to exploit apparent weaknesses. The nebula's particle density was perfect for concealing our mines." She gestured at the tactical display, now showing the retreating enemy vessels. "They'll spread word of this defeat. The psychological impact will be worth 10 more victories." For the first time, Marcus saw beyond Delnar's intimidating reputation. Her brilliance wasn't just in the victory, but in how she'd achieved it: minimal casualties, maximum impact. "Commander," the communications officer called out. "Priority message from Hegemony High Command. There, congratulating you." Delnar frowned slightly. Unexpected. High Command rarely acknowledges tactical successes. "Perhaps they're finally recognizing your value," Marcus suggested. Delnar's violet eyes narrowed. "Perhaps." She turned toward the exit. "Walk with me, Drake. We have matters to discuss." As they left the bridge, Marcus realized his perception had shifted. He no longer saw a diminutive alien commander. He saw a brilliant strategist who had just outmaneuvered a force 3 times their strength. And something in her reaction to High Command's message suggested there were depths to Commander Delnar he had yet to discover. The shuttle rocked violently as it entered Nexus Prime's turbulent atmosphere. Marcus checked his tactical gear one last time while Commander Delnar studied a holographic map of their destination. "Remind me why we're personally infiltrating a coalition outpost?" Marcus asked, securing his plasma rifle. "Because High Command's intelligence is compromised," Delnar replied without looking up. The data we need can't be trusted to regular channels. The mission was simple in theory. Infiltrate the Coalition research facility, extract data on a new weapons platform, and depart undetected. In practice, it was a suicide mission, which explained why Delnar had brought only Marcus along. "You don't trust your own officers," Marcus observed. Delnar deactivated the hologram. "I trust capability, Drake. You've demonstrated yours." The shuttle landed in a rocky canyon 5 kilometers from the facility. As they disembarked, Marcus was struck by how different Delnar looked in combat gear. The customized armor accentuated her alien physiology rather than trying to compensate for it. They moved silently through the rugged terrain. Despite her size, Delnar matched Marcus's pace without difficulty, her species' naturally efficient musculature giving her surprising endurance. "You're starring again," she noted as they paused behind a ridge. "Sorry, Commander, still adjusting to seeing you in the field. You assumed I achieved my rank through theoretical knowledge alone. Your reputation focuses on your tactical mind, not combat experience." Delnar made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The hegemony prefers that narrative. A brilliant mind they can control is less threatening than a commander with both intelligence and battlefield experience." They reached the facility's perimeter as darkness fell. Delnar produced a device that disabled the security sensors long enough for them to slip through. "Where did you learn to do that?" Marcus whispered as they navigated through maintenance corridors. "I wasn't always a fleet commander." Delnar moved with practiced precision. "I was born on Vesperia Minor, a colony world, not the homeworld. We were less privileged. I joined the military to escape." Marcus struggled to reconcile this new information with Delnar's reputation. "The reports say you were a tactical prodigy from an elite family." "The hegemony rewrites history to suit its needs." Her voice hardened. "Excellence is more palatable when it comes from privilege rather than necessity." They reached the central data core without incident. Delnar interfaced with the system while Marcus kept watch. "I've found something unexpected," she murmured after several minutes. "This isn't just weapons research. The Coalition has evidence of hegemony atrocities in the Outer Rim, civilian massacres, chemical warfare, planetary sterilization." Marcus felt a chill. "That can't be right." "It confirms my suspicions." Delnar's voice was tight. "Why I needed to see this data myself." An alarm suddenly blared. Delnar disconnected from the terminal. "We've been compromised." They fled toward the extraction point, but Coalition forces had already blocked their planned escape route. Cornered in a storage bay, Marcus prepared for a last stand. "We need a diversion," Delnar stated, studying their surroundings with calculated intensity. "I'll give you one," Marcus replied. "Get to the shuttle." "Don't be absurd." She gestured toward a ventilation shaft. "That leads to the facility's atmospheric processors. I can reconfigure them to create a localized evacuation alarm." "You're too valuable to risk." "This isn't about my value," Delnar cut him off. "It's about completing the mission." Her eyes met his. "Trust me, Drake." Against his better judgment, Marcus helped lift her to the shaft. 3 tense minutes later, emergency klaxons wailed as atmospheric warnings flashed. Coalition forces scrambled to evacuate the affected sections, creating the opening they needed. During their escape, Marcus saw Delnar not as the feared commander, but as a survivor who had fought her way up from nothing, a revelation that explained both her brilliance and her intensity. Back aboard the shuttle, Delnar was uncharacteristically quiet. "What will you do with the information?" Marcus finally asked. "What I've always intended to do, Drake." Her violet eyes reflected the stars beyond the viewport. "Change the hegemony from within." The HCS Invictus dropped out of hyperspace above Centauri Station, the massive hegemony command center that served as headquarters for this sector of space. Commander Delnar stood on the bridge, her diminutive form tense as she reviewed incoming communications. "Something's wrong," she muttered. "Station defense grid is fully activated, no standard recognition protocols." The communications officer turned with alarm. "Commander, we're being hailed by Admiral Vorax." The main display flickered to life, showing the gray-skinned visage of Admiral Vorax, the sector commander and Delnar's superior. "Commander Delnar," his deep voice resonated through the bridge. By order of the new Hegemony Directorate, you are hereby relieved of command. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Marcus saw Delnar's expression shift from surprise to calculation in an instant. What new directorate? She demanded. The Hegemony Council has been dissolved for inefficiency and corruption. Vorax's expression was smug. A military directorate now governs. Your unusual methods and questionable loyalties have been deemed incompatible with our new direction. Delnar cut the transmission. It's a coup, she said to the stunned bridge crew, and they don't expect us to survive. Almost immediately, the tactical officer shouted, multiple vessels decloaking, Hegemony signatures. 4 battlecruisers appeared on sensors, weapons hot and targeting the Invictus. Full reverse, evasive pattern Delta 7, Delnar ordered. She turned to Marcus. They knew we were coming, someone betrayed us. The Invictus shuddered as the first barrage struck its shields. Delnar issued a rapid series of commands, somehow keeping the ship intact against overwhelming firepower. We can't win this, Marcus stated the obvious. We don't need to win. Delnar's eyes never left the tactical display. We need to escape. Using the gas giant's rings as cover, she orchestrated a daring series of maneuvers that kept them alive long enough to make a blind hyperspace jump, a desperate gambit that could end in disaster. Hours later, the damaged Invictus drifted in an unmapped system, running on emergency power. Delnar had ordered most of the crew to evacuation pods, sending them toward neutral territories with orders to disappear. In her private quarters, Delnar and Marcus assessed their situation with the ship's remaining loyal officers. The coup was well planned, Delnar explained, displaying the intelligence she'd gathered. Admiral Vorax and his allies have been preparing for months. They represent the most hardline expansionist faction of the Hegemony military. Why target you specifically? Asked Lieutenant Kira, the navigation officer who had chosen to remain. Because I've been gathering evidence of their war crimes. Delnar activated a secure data core. The same atrocities we discovered on Nexus Prime. I've been building a network of like-minded officers who believe the Hegemony must be reformed. Marcus suddenly understood. You're not just a brilliant tactician, you're the leader of an internal resistance. Delnar's violet eyes met his. I told you I intended to change the Hegemony from within. Now we must do it from without. She displayed a star chart with several locations highlighted. These are safe havens, colonies, stations, and ships commanded by officers sympathetic to our cause. From these positions, we can gather strength. You're talking about civil war, Marcus said quietly. I'm talking about saving the Hegemony from itself. Delnar's voice was firm. Vorax and his directorate will drive us into a destructive war with the coalition that will cost billions of lives. We can't allow that. Looking around the room, Marcus saw determination on every face, species from across the galaxy united by loyalty to this improbable commander. I was assigned to protect you, Marcus told Delnar. I'll continue that mission. Something almost like a smile crossed Delnar's face. Our odds are poor, Drake. I've seen you overcome worse odds. Delnar nodded. Then we begin now. Lieutenant Kira set course for the Callisto Nebula. We have allies to gather. As the damaged ship limped toward its destination, Marcus realized he had crossed a line. He was no longer a Hegemony mercenary following orders. He had thrown his lot in with Delnar's vision, not out of fear or obligation, but because he believed in what she stood for. The tiny commander had somehow become the one leader in the galaxy he would willingly follow into battle. 6 months after the coup, the Resistance fleet gathered in the shadow of an ancient space station at the edge of Hegemony space. 17 ships of varying classes, crewed by officers and soldiers who had chosen Delnar's vision over the Directorate's iron rule. Marcus stood beside Commander Delnar, or simply Talia, as she now preferred among her inner circle, as she addressed the assembled captains via holographic conference. The Directorate has overextended, Talia explained, manipulating the tactical display to show Hegemony fleet movements. Their aggressive push into coalition territory has left key systems vulnerable. Meanwhile, their purges of disloyal elements have created widespread discontent. Captain Lorax, a grizzled Taurian who had defected with his entire destroyer squadron, rumbled in his deep voice. We still lack the firepower to challenge them directly. We won't need to, Talia replied, her violet eyes glinting. Our intelligence indicates that the Directorate is planning a major offensive against the Coalition capital world. They're gathering their forces at Nexus Station. Marcus understood immediately. If they commit to that attack and fail, the military leadership will be discredited, Talia finished, and our supporters throughout the hegemony will be positioned to step in. The plan was audacious. They would warn the Coalition about the impending attack while simultaneously sabotaging key Directorate vessels. The Coalition would repel the invasion, and in the aftermath, Talia's forces would move to secure critical hegemony installations before the Directorate could recover. It's not without risk, Talia acknowledged after the meeting, when only Marcus remained. If we're discovered, warning the Coalition will be branded as traitors forever. Aren't we already? Marcus asked. There's a difference between opposing a corrupt leadership and betraying your civilization. Talia's small hands clenched. I've never wanted to destroy the hegemony, only to reform it. Marcus had never seen her so uncertain. You're doing what's necessary, he said quietly, saving lives on both sides. 3 days later, Marcus piloted a stealth shuttle carrying Talia toward the Coalition border. Their mission, to make contact with Coalition leadership through a trusted intermediary. I never thought I'd willingly enter Coalition space, Talia remarked as they approached the rendezvous point. Desperate times, Marcus replied, checking their cloaking systems. The meeting was tense. Coalition officials were understandably suspicious of a hegemony commander suddenly offering intelligence. But the evidence Talia presented was irrefutable. Why are you doing this? Demanded Admiral Chen of the Coalition Defense Force. Because the Directorate will destroy everything in its path, including eventually the hegemony itself, Talia answered. Help us stop them now, and when this is over, perhaps we can build something better between our peoples. The warning delivered, they returned to Resistance space to prepare for the next phase. But Admiral Vorax had laid a trap of his own. A Directorate strike force was waiting when their flagship emerged from hyperspace. We've been betrayed, Talia stated calmly as alarms blared. She turned to Marcus. Get to the emergency command center. I need you coordinating our fighters. The battle was chaotic and desperate. Outnumbered and outgunned, the Resistance vessels fought with determination and unconventional tactics designed by Talia herself. From his position, Marcus coordinated their fighter squadrons according to Talia's strategy, creating confusion among the Directorate forces. But their flagship took heavy damage, systems failing throughout the vessel. In the midst of battle, Marcus received an emergency signal from the bridge. Racing through damaged corridors, he found Talia trapped beneath fallen debris, the bridge crew dead around her. The Directorate flagship is vulnerable, she told him through gritted teeth as he worked to free her. Their ventral shields are fluctuating if we can position correctly. Marcus lifted the debris. We need to get you to medical. No time. Help me to the auxiliary tactical station. Despite her injuries, Talia coordinated a final, desperate maneuver. 3 Resistance ships converged on the Directorate flagship, concentrating fire on the shield weakness she had identified. The massive vessel erupted in a series of explosions, throwing the Directorate forces into disarray. In the confusion, the Resistance fleet escaped, battered but alive. 2 weeks later, the Directorate launched its massive offensive against the Coalition and met a prepared defense force that decimated their fleet. Admiral Vorax was killed in the battle, and as hegemony forces retreated in disorder, Talia's resistance struck. Key installations fell to their supporters. Hegemony worlds, tired of the Directorate's harsh rule, welcomed them as liberators. Within a month, the coup had been reversed. In the Grand Council chamber of the hegemony capital, Talia, now elevated to Grand Admiral, addressed the assembled representatives of worlds across the galaxy. Marcus stood at her side, no longer a bodyguard but a trusted advisor. The hegemony was founded on principles of order and mutual benefit. Her voice carried throughout the chamber despite her small stature. Over time, those principles were corrupted by those who sought power for its own sake. She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Today, we begin anew, not as conquerors but as builders, not through fear but through cooperation. As applause filled the chamber, Talia glanced up at Marcus. Was it worth it? She asked quietly. Marcus looked at the diminutive commander, who had changed the course of galactic history through sheer brilliance and determination. Every moment, he replied. For the first time in all their months together, Talia smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her severe features. Then our real work begins, she said, turning back to face the future they had fought to create.